The entire courtroom fell silent. It was the kind of silence that weighed heavy in the air, pressing down on everyone like an invisible force. The sound of a pin dropping would have echoed like a gunshot. Judge Malcolm Graves sat still, his expression unreadable. He had spent years on the bench, seen the worst of humanity, murderers, liars, thieves, but never had he witnessed something so brazen. The woman standing before him, a defendant named Chelsea McBride, smirked as she adjusted her shirt, a plain white t-shirt, but the words printed across it sent shockwaves through the room. F suck black people. The words were bold, unapologetic, dripping with hate. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. A black bailiff clenched his jaw, his hand hovering near his holster as if expecting chaos. A woman in the audience covered her mouth in horror. Even the white prosecutor looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. Judge Graves took a slow breath, gripping the edge of his bench, his eyes dark and piercing, locked on to Chelsea with a terrifying intensity. "Miss McBride," he said, his voice low but deadly, approached the bench. Chelsea strutted forward, still grinning, her blonde hair bouncing with every step. She had the confidence of someone who had never faced consequences a day in her life. That was about to change. What happened next made headlines across the country. Reporters would call it the most shocking courtroom ruling in history, and Chelsea McBride, she would never be the same again. It all started 2 weeks earlier. Chelsea McBride never thought she'd end up in court, not really. She had been in trouble before, DUIs, bar fights, even a shoplifting charge, but nothing serious. Her father was a retired police chief, her uncle was a judge in another district. She had always gotten off easy. So when she got arrested for assaulting a black woman outside a gas station, she wasn't worried. "It's nothing," she had told her boyfriend Trevor as she blew smoke out of her car window. "It'll be a slap on the wrist." Trevor, who was too busy scrolling through his phone to care, just nodded. "Yeah, babe, probably." Chelsea rolled her eyes. Of course it was nothing. The lady she had attacked was some nobody, a black woman named Denise Johnson. Chelsea had been drunk, irritated, and Denise had looked at her wrong, so she called her names, ugly names. When Denise snapped back, Chelsea punched her in the face. It was only when the police came that Chelsea realized Denise had connections. The cops actually arrested her. "Can you believe that?" she had complained to her friends later over drinks, over some stupid words and a little slap. Her friends agreed. They laughed about it. Chelsea didn't even bother to dress formally for court. She wasn't scared, but then she found out who the judge was. Judge Malcolm Graves, a black man known for being strict, no nonsense, a man who did not tolerate disrespect in his courtroom. Chelsea smirked. She liked pushing buttons. She liked making people mad. So she had an idea. A stupid, reckless idea. "What if I wear something special to court?" she told Trevor, giggling. Trevor barely looked up. "Like what?" Chelsea's grin widened. "Oh, you'll see." When she arrived at court that morning, she strutted in like it was a fashion show. Heads turned the moment people read her shirt. Murmurs filled the room. Some people pulled out their phones to record. The security guards looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Chelsea ignored them all, walking straight to her seat, her chin held high. Then the judge walked in. "All rise." Everyone stood. Judge Malcolm Graves took his seat, adjusting his glasses. Then he looked up and saw her. His expression didn't change, not at first, but there was a flicker of something dangerous. Chelsea smiled sweetly at him, like a child showing off a crayon drawing. Judge Graves leaned forward slightly. His voice was steady when he spoke. "Miss McBride," he said, "you have exactly 5 seconds to explain yourself." Chelsea shrugged. "It's a free country, isn't it?" she said. "Freedom of speech and all." The courtroom held its breath. Judge Graves nodded slowly. Then, in the calmest voice imaginable, he said, "Bailiff, lock the doors." There was a pause, then click. The sound of the courtroom doors locking sent a shiver down everyone's spine. The air changed. Judge Graves removed his glasses, placing them carefully on the desk. He studied Chelsea like a scientist examining a deadly virus. Then he spoke. "Miss McBride," he said, "I was going to sentence you to probation." Chelsea's smirk grew, but Judge Graves continued. Since you have chosen to make a spectacle of my courtroom, I have decided on a more fitting punishment. His voice dropped to a whisper. You won't be leaving this courtroom the same way you walked in. Chelsea's smile faltered. For the first time, she felt something she had never felt before: fear. The entire courtroom braced itself, because what Judge Graves did next was unthinkable. The tension in the room was thick. No one moved, no one even breathed. The air was heavy with expectation. Chelsea's smirk was gone now. Something about the judge's voice, so calm, so certain, made her stomach twist. "Bailiff," Judge Graves said, "bring her forward." The bailiff, a tall, broad-shouldered black man named Officer Harris, stepped toward Chelsea. "Let's go," he said. Chelsea scoffed. "This is ridiculous." But she moved anyway, dragging her feet as she walked to the front of the courtroom. The cameras were still rolling. She felt a mix of embarrassment and irritation. This was supposed to be funny, a joke. She wanted to rile people up, get a reaction. But now, standing before the judge, it didn't feel funny anymore. Judge Graves leaned forward, clasping his hands together. His eyes were steady, calculating. "You think you're untouchable, don't you, Miss McBride?" he asked. Chelsea crossed her arms. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do." He turned his gaze toward the court clerk. "Read the charges against her." The clerk, a young black woman who had been glaring at Chelsea since she walked in, stood and cleared her throat. "Chelsea McBride is charged with 1 count of assault and battery against Denise Johnson," she announced. "She is also charged with disorderly conduct and public intoxication." The judge nodded. "And what was the original recommended sentence?" The clerk looked at her papers. "Probation with anger management classes." A chuckle rippled through the courtroom. "That was nothing, a slap on the wrist." Judge Graves turned back to Chelsea, his expression unreadable. "I was willing to go easy on you," he said, "but you walked into my courtroom and disrespected not just me, but an entire race of people. You did it with arrogance, with a smile on your face." Chelsea rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, it's just a shirt." The judge's expression darkened. "No, Miss McBride, it's a statement. And now I'm going to make one too." He leaned back in his chair. "I'm sentencing you to 90 days in county jail." Gasps filled the room. Chelsea's mouth dropped open. "What?" she shrieked. "That's insane. You can't do that." Judge Graves wasn't finished. "I'm also ordering you to participate in a racial sensitivity program while incarcerated. You will take classes, engage in community service, and most importantly, you will learn what it means to be held accountable for your actions." Chelsea's eyes widened in horror. "You can't do this!" Judge Graves tilted his head. "I just did." Chelsea turned wildly toward her lawyer, a middle-aged man who looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. "Do something," she snapped. The lawyer swallowed hard. "Your Honor, we would like to request an appeal." Judge Graves didn't blink. Request denied. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. People pulled out their phones, whispering excitedly. This wasn't just a court case anymore. This was a moment in history. Chelsea shook her head in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "I am," the judge replied. Then, in a voice colder than ice, he added, "Bailiff, take her into custody." Officer Harris stepped forward. "No," Chelsea shrieked, stepping back. "You can't put me in jail for a shirt." The judge didn't respond. Officer Harris grabbed her by the arm, firm but controlled. Chelsea flailed. "This is illegal. My dad's a cop. You can't do this to me." Judge Graves simply watched as Officer Harris began to pull her away. Chelsea kicked and screamed, "This isn't fair! This isn't fair!" She turned to the audience, searching for support, but no one came to her aid. Some were recording, others were whispering. A few even looked satisfied. Chelsea's eyes darted back to Judge Graves, wild with rage. "You'll regret this," she spat. The judge's face remained stone cold. "No, Miss McBride, you will—" Chelsea was dragged through the courtroom doors, her screams echoing down the halls. The doors slammed shut. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Judge Graves adjusted his glasses and looked at the prosecutor. "Next case." The courtroom buzzed with whispered conversations. What had just happened was unprecedented. Chelsea McBride, the woman who walked in full of arrogance and hate, was now sitting in a holding cell waiting to be transported to county jail. And what awaited her there would change everything. The cold metal cuffs around Chelsea's wrists felt like they were burning her skin. She sat in the back of the transport van, seething, her nails digging into her palms. Jail. She was actually going to jail. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. She was supposed to walk in, smirk at the judge, get a light slap on the wrist, and be out in time for brunch. But instead, this. Her father was going to lose his mind when he found out. He had connections. He'd fix this. He always did. The van rumbled forward, taking her deeper into a nightmare she hadn't been prepared for. The other women in the van eyed her. Some whispered, some smirked. One of them, a big woman with short braids and a scar across her cheek, stared at Chelsea for an uncomfortably long time. "What you in for, Barbie?" the woman finally asked. Chelsea exhaled sharply. "Something stupid." The woman chuckled. "Ain't we all?" Chelsea looked out the barred window, her jaw clenched. This wasn't happening. She'd be out by the end of the day, right? When Chelsea stepped into the county jail, the smell hit her, a mix of bleach, sweat, and something metallic. It was suffocating. The officers led her through processing, mugshot, fingerprints, the humiliating strip search. Then they handed her an orange jumpsuit. She stared at it in horror. "You expect me to wear this?" The female officer smirked. "Unless you plan on going naked, sweetheart." Chelsea snatched the uniform and turned away, face burning. This was a nightmare. Once she changed, she was led to an open area with rows of holding cells. The sounds of shouting, laughter, and metal bars clanking filled the air. This wasn't like the movies, it was worse. The guard opened a cell door and nudged her inside. "Welcome home," he said mockingly before slamming the bars shut. Chelsea stood still, feeling eyes on her. There were 3 other women in the cell. One of them, a light-skinned black woman with sharp eyes and braided hair, smirked at her. "Well, well, well," she said, tilting her head. "Look who it is." Chelsea frowned. "What?" The woman stepped forward. "You don't remember me, do you?" Chelsea's stomach twisted. The woman smirked. "My name is Denise Johnson," she said. Chelsea's blood ran cold. Chelsea's brain struggled to process what was happening. Denise? The woman she had attacked? The reason she was here? What kind of sick joke was this? Denise folded her arms, watching Chelsea squirm. "Didn't think we'd meet again, did you?" Chelsea took a step back, bumping into the cold wall. Denise chuckled. "Relax, Barbie, I ain't going to touch you. Yet." One of the other inmates, a tall woman with tattoos covering her arms, laughed. "Damn, Denise, this is the chick that jumped you?" Denise nodded. The tattooed woman shook her head. "Oh, this is going to be fun." Chelsea's heart pounded. She needed to get out now. She ran to the bars, gripping them tight. "I need to make a call." A nearby guard, an older black woman, looked up from her desk and raised an eyebrow. "You'll get your call when it's your turn." Chelsea's breathing turned shallow. She turned back toward Denise, who was still smirking. "You scared?" Denise asked. Chelsea clenched her fists. "Of you? Please." Denise's smirk didn't fade. "Good." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Because we got 90 days together, sweetheart, and I'm going to make sure you feel every second of it." Chelsea swallowed hard. This couldn't be happening. But it was, and it was just the beginning. Chelsea sat on the thin, hard mattress in the corner of the cell, her back pressed against the cold wall. She kept her eyes on Denise, who was casually lounging on the opposite bunk, twirling one of her braids between her fingers. The room felt smaller by the second. The other inmates, the tattooed woman and a shorter Latina girl with a scar on her eyebrow, whispered between themselves, throwing glances at Chelsea every now and then. Chelsea didn't like the way they looked at her, like she was prey. She had to get out of here. Her father was probably already making calls. All she had to do was wait. She shut her eyes, trying to ignore the growing anxiety twisting in her gut. Then Denise spoke. "You know, I saw the video," she said. Chelsea's eyes snapped open. Denise was staring at her, a lazy smirk on her lips. "The one of you walking into court," she continued. "That shirt, bold choice." Chelsea clenched her fists. She wasn't in the mood for this. "So what?" she muttered. The tattooed woman laughed. Girl, you got balls, I'll give you that. But they don't work in here. Chelsea rolled her eyes. Spare me the speech. Denise sat up, stretching her arms. Oh, no speech, sweetheart. I just think it's funny. What's funny? Denise's smile widened. That you thought you could walk in and say whatever you wanted, do whatever you wanted, without consequences. Chelsea scoffed. This is illegal. I shouldn't even be here. Denise chuckled. Oh, you're exactly where you belong. Chelsea's temper flared. You people always think you're the victims. The second the words left her mouth, she regretted them. The cell fell silent. The tattooed woman stopped smirking. The Latina girl sat up straight. And Denise? Denise's smile disappeared slowly. She swung her legs off the bed, her boots hitting the floor with a soft thud. She stood up. Chelsea's heartbeat skyrocketed. Denise walked over, stopping inches from her. The tension was suffocating. You people, huh? Denise said softly. Chelsea swallowed hard. She felt trapped. Denise leaned down, bringing her face close. Chelsea could see the sharpness in her dark brown eyes. You ever say that again, Denise whispered, and I promise you, you won't walk out of here the same. Chelsea's breath caught in her throat. She opened her mouth to snap back, but the words never came, because Denise didn't look mad. She looked calm. Too calm. That was more terrifying than if she had been yelling. Then, just as quickly as the moment started, Denise backed up and smiled. I'm going to enjoy our time together, Barbie, she said. You and me, we're going to have fun. Chelsea didn't move. She didn't blink. For the first time in her life, she was afraid. 2 hours later, Chelsea finally got her phone call. She practically ran to the phone booth, snatching the receiver off the hook and dialing her father's number. It rang twice before she heard his voice. Dad, she breathed, you have to get me out of here, now. A pause. Then, Chelsea. His voice was tense. Yes, Dad, it's me. They put me in jail. You need to call someone. I know where you are, Chelsea. Chelsea frowned. Something was wrong. Her father sounded different. Then why am I still here? She demanded. Another pause. Then her father sighed. Chelsea, he said, voice heavy. I can't help you this time. The world stopped. Chelsea's breath hitched. What? She whispered. Her father exhaled. The judge, Malcolm Graves, he's got power. A lot of it. I pulled every string I had, but this time, it's out of my hands. Chelsea's hands tightened around the phone. No, she said, shaking her head. No, you don't understand. I don't belong here. Her father's silence told her everything. Tears burned at the back of her eyes. Dad, please, she begged. You always fix things. Just call someone. Call Uncle Rob. He's a judge. I already did, her father interrupted. His voice was flat. Rob said the same thing. This time, Chelsea, you have to face this. Chelsea's whole body went numb. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. She felt like the floor had been ripped out from under her. Her father cleared his throat. You'll be in there for 3 months. If you keep your head down, you'll be fine. Chelsea couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her own father was telling her to accept this. I can't do this, she whispered. You have no choice, her father said. I'll see you when you're out. And then, click, the line went dead. Chelsea stood there frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. She couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. Her father, the man who had always saved her, had just abandoned her. The guard tapped her shoulder. Time's up. Chelsea didn't even react as he took the phone from her hand and led her back to the cell. Her mind was blank. She barely noticed when the cell door slammed shut behind her. She barely heard Denise chuckling from across the room. She barely processed any of it. Because for the first time in her life, Chelsea McBride was truly alone. And the real nightmare was just beginning.